Hello everybody, it's Olumayowa Victor Ogunshola from IDPS. IDPS means I diagnose and proffer solutions. What do I have for us today? I've got something interesting for everybody, but today mostly students. So are you a university student anywhere in the world? Whether you're studying your first degree or you are studying your master's degree. Today I will be talking about writing your thesis. That is your final assignment, your research project. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. I know that this is a lot of struggle for bachelor students and as well master students, and therefore I decided to put this video together and we look at the ABC of writing a research assignment. That is our final year project, or in some countries we call that a thesis. So let's come to the whiteboard as I will be explaining everything. Firstly, we should start with what is known as the executive summary. And when we talk about the executive summary appears first on our thesis document, on our thesis paper. That's when we open the thesis itself. That's what we see first, but mostly is what we write last. So we see it first, but it's the last thing that you write. The executive summary is a condensed version of the whole thesis. So when someone picks up your thesis and they read the executive summary, they have an idea of what your whole thesis is about. So the executive summary is a condensed version of the whole thesis. Please note, an executive summary is quite different from an abstract. An abstract is a brief summary statement, or more precisely, a short overview of the whole thesis. Okay, so that means an abstract is very short, more straightforward than an executive summary. Okay, now let's go through the various contents of your final year project. Maybe you're trying to write one now in a bachelor program, or you're trying to write one in a master's program. Your research project should include the following chapters. There should be a chapter, of course, there should be an executive summary. Then there should be a chapter 1. Your chapter 1 is your introductory chapter, introduction. There should be a chapter 2, that is the literature review chapter, where you talk about all the theories used. There is a chapter 3 for research methodology. There is chapter 4 for your findings and analysis. And there is chapter 5 for conclusions, chapter 6 for recommendations, and lastly, you put your references together and appendix. I must say at this time now, this may differ from institution to institution or from country to country, but generally, this is the academically acceptable standards in terms of thesis contents. So thank you. Talking about references, it is advised that while you start your thesis, please include all references with the use of the Microsoft Word reference tab just above your Microsoft Word document, please. Yeah, this makes it easier for you. So talking about the first chapter of your thesis, the first thing is the introduction. What are you going to be introducing? Talk about the case study company. Give a brief history of the background of the company. What do they do? Who are their customers? Who are their stakeholders? Just introduce the company generally, okay? And then you talk about the context of the problem. So what is the problem that you are trying to solve? You know, what is the problem? Why is it a problem? How is it a problem? Talk about that context of the problem. Talking about root causes of the problem. Yes, we understand there's a problem, but what is the root cause of that problem? To get to the root cause of the problem, you can introduce a fishbone diagram to get to the root cause of the problem. So if you please look at my YouTube video titled Fishbone Diagram, just put in Olumayowa Victor Ogunshola, my name, and put in fishbone diagram, and you can see that video on how to use a fishbone diagram to get to the root cause of the problem. Another way to get to the root cause of a problem is using your 5 whys. Root cause of the problem, yeah, 5 whys. Why did this happen? It happened because of X. Why X? It happened because of K. Why K? It happened because of Z. Why Z? It happened because of P. Why P? 5 whys. Huh? Okay. Also, in your chapter 1, you should identify all stakeholders involved in your thesis, okay? Stakeholders from the company, stakeholders from the university, your supervisor and all, stakeholders who are the people that you are going to interview. So please identify all stakeholders involved, also in the introductory chapter. Now you need to write a problem statement, okay? Your problem statement has to be smart. When you write your problem statement, tell us why it's a problem and what the problem is. Also, you need to write a research objective. When you write your research objective, please, it should be about the what and the how, okay? The objective of this thesis is to research the what? The problem, okay? Then you go, this will be done by, okay? So your research objective should be about the what and the how. The objective of this research is to research the entrepreneurial blah, blah, blah. So that is the what, yeah? And once this will be achieved by, that is the how, okay? The what and the how. And then there is the research framework. I will show us the research framework on the next page. Once you get your research framework right, you have finished your whole thesis. The research framework is like the architectural drawing of your whole thesis. Okay, now your research questions has to be formulated. You have 3 research questions, please. You have the main research question, the theoretical research questions, and the empirical research questions. I say it again. When it comes to your research questions, still in your chapter 1, the main research question has to be formulated, MRQ, main research question, okay? And then the theoretical research questions, it could be 2 or 3 or 4 theoretical questions. Those will be answered in your literature review. And then the empirical research questions will be answered by your research objectives, okay? And lastly, you have what is research in scope and out scope. What are the things that's going to be involved in your research? What areas is your research going to cover? The research out scope are the areas or topics that will not be covered in your research. Ladies and gentlemen, chapter 1 of your thesis, let's go, as I promised, to the research framework. As you can see, the research framework, here you have your first theory, second theory, third theory, and your fourth theory. T1, T2, T3, T4, and that leads to the conceptual model. And then you have your empirical 1, empirical 2, empirical 3, empirical 4, empirical 5. Those are the research objects. This could be government, this could be employees of the organization, and for each research object, there is a result of the analysis, and from that analysis, you have your conclusions and recommendation. If you give me a minute, I'd like to come to the smart board, and I'd like to briefly show a real-life example of that research framework. This is an example of a research framework. As you can see, this is T1. If you look on the board there, research framework, T1. T1 here, theory 1 would be market analysis and market research. So this student is going to write a market analysis and a market research, okay? T2 is market strategies. This student is going to make a research and write literature on different market entry strategies, okay? Value proposition and venture startup concept will be T3. The student here is going to write a lot of theory about value proposition and venture startup concept. Bankable business plan, the T4. The student is going to write a lot of literature about bankable business plan. Then the student goes to the conceptual framework and talks about the competitors, which means this student will interview competitors and have the results from the interview. The student E2 will interview government and have a result of the analysis. The student will interview participants and have a result of the analysis. E4, can you see E4 there? The students will interview banks and ventures, okay, and have a result of the analysis. And lastly, E5, as you can see here, the students will interview knowledge suppliers and have a result of the analysis, okay? From the result of all these analyses, the students comes up with a conclusion and can make recommendations, okay? And this is the research framework. Once the student is able to get their research framework right, the student can always look this to know about the next step in their thesis. Thank you very much. I go back to this and I go back to the flip chart board. Thank you. The next chapter in your thesis then will be your chapter 2. In your chapter 2, you write theoretically and you have to write critically with appropriate references of your literature. Don't forget your literature is your T1, T2, T3, T4 in your research framework. In that case, it was that student writing about a bankable business plan, market research and analysis, market entry strategies, and all that. When you are writing your literature review, I've got some useful tips for you. First, remember your research questions. Make sure that your research questions is at the heart of your literature review. For every literature that you are writing, for every theory that you are explaining, make sure that those theories are already giving answers to your research question. Also, make wide research. Don't just use them from textbook, from journals. Look at YouTube videos. Get as much variety of sources as possible involved in your literature review. Please identify, analyze, evaluate, interpret, be critical when you're writing your literature review. Please choose significance over content. Don't see some content and just put it in. Ask yourself, is it an important concept? If it's important, then it can be included. Valid sources, please. Don't use outdated sources. Your sources must be valid. And please make use of referencing. It could be APA style referencing or Harvard referencing system. This would depend on your university, okay? And then be very critical. Be very critical, which means when you write for, please critique what you write and write against. Include real life examples. Go into the news and pick relevant examples and back that up in your literature review. Thank you very much. We go now to a very interesting chapter, and that is chapter 3 of your thesis, and that is research methodology. In this chapter, you have to decide, is it going to be a primary research or secondary research? Or it could be a combination of both. By primary research, we mean that that research has not been done before, so you are getting the data together for the first time. Primary research can be time consuming, but if it's a secondary research, this is data that already exists, and then you are assessing ready-made data. This, of course, saves time. If you are assessing ready-made data, please make use of your references. Please make use of your references. Also, is it qualitative or quantitative research? If it is quantitative research, it means that it involves computation of numerical values. Okay, it also means there are some kind of graphical representations and all that. If it is qualitative research, it's non-numerical, and mostly it's an interview, and data interview is used as data collection techniques. Okay, what are your data collection techniques? That should be explained in your research methodology. Is it interviews? Is it questionnaires or sampling? Okay, also in your chapter 3 for your research methodology, reliability of data, validity of data, quality of data, and access of data must be explained. How reliable is your data? How valid is your data? What is the quality of your data? How did you assess this data? All that must be explained in chapter 3. We go to a very more interesting chapter, and that is chapter 4. In your chapter 4, you are talking about the findings and analysis. Go back to your empirical questions, okay? That is the interviews, and you begin to analyze these interview results, okay? This can be done by graphs, okay? Let me show you an example of what you can find in your chapter 4. We are soon coming to the end of this video. So this could be, for example, chapter 4. So, yes, please. If you look at that, the question says, which category of Nigerians, i.e. clients or participants, benefit from the services offered by your training and professional development company? And this student has analyzed that with a graph, and you can see that the category that benefits, the answer there is the labor force. As you can see, that has the highest number of percentage. So these are the kind of things that you will be putting together in your chapter 4. Okay, for some high-level thesis that may require software for analyzing, and such software may be the SPSS. But you can analyze your interview results using graphs and bar charts. We go to chapter 5, and this is the conclusion chapter. To achieve the thesis aim, please explain what needs to be done after all that research. And that's the conclusion. What needs to be done after all that research? Tell the company, the research, the research owner, the company, what are your findings? What needs to be done? Okay. In the conclusion, also, if there have been any limitations in the process of this research, please be sure to include these limitations in your chapter 5. Lastly, we have a chapter, which is the last chapter, that's chapter 6. Chapter 6, and that is recommendation chapter. Here, you need to provide smart solutions, but be sure that your smart solutions is in agreement with your research, okay? Mention what could be done. What can be done for improvement? Mention that, and it could be 3 or 4 valuable recommendations. Also, mention what you could have done, but you couldn't do because of limitations, but those things could be done for further research. I'm going to put on the light now as I come to the end of this video. Sorry about that. I'm here again. So, provide smart solutions. These are your recommendations, and this could be done. And the very last thing that you must do when it comes to your thesis is your references. Please, Harvard referencing or APA style, follow the recommendations for referencing by your university, and include every material that could support your work in the appendix. For example, interview materials could be gone to the appendix. Ladies and gentlemen, that video was about writing your thesis or final year research assignment. Thank you very much. Have you enjoyed that video? Please give us a feedback by sending us an email at info@idps.com or visit our website www.idpsconsults.com and tell us how we can serve you better. I'm sure that this video is going to help one student out there to write an effective master's thesis or a bachelor's thesis. Thank you very much. You know that I will not go until I talk about my passion. And my passion is that Africa must develop. Are you an African anywhere in the world? Keep doing something to promote African unity, and keep doing everything to make sure Africa must develop. This is where it comes to an end today. In English language, thank you. In Dutch language, thank you well. Yoruba language from Nigeria, West Africa, Esheo. Bye.